That's not the plan. Yeah, it's crazy because you've obviously, I mean, for you, like, being able to kind of tell like the Pimp C story in a way that is very comprehensive, very thorough. Do you kind of look at yourself as like somebody who is like a historian of hip hop at this point? Because you were there for so much of an era that I think like now we look back. I don't, I always tell people like, especially in sports, I'm like, you don't realize like what we're watching or what we're a part of or what we're seeing on TV. Like you don't know about, like, you're not going to appreciate LeBron until 10 years from now when he's gone, And I feel like that era of Southern hip hop and everybody who came out of that, who's still relevant, who are still, I mean, you mentioned Rick Ross and Jeezy and all these people who are just still staples of our culture. Like, but you were like in the just front row of the like really the beginning of all of this stuff. So do you kind of like?
I'm glad I was there. Yeah. I do consider myself a historian. I mean, not just for hip hop, but just I'm into history. Period.
Right.
I really look at not only our time period, but just I have all kinds of weird theories about like even just how we live, like our lifestyles. Like people did not always live
this way
like we live. I mean, I've been on some other like I'm off adventuring, like hiking, and
right.
It just makes you think about different. People didn't always live like this. Like, we don't really need like these big houses and cars and stuff. Like there's people who are totally satisfied.
I dive down so many van life YouTube rabbit holes where I'm just like interested in seeing how people live in a van.
So I live in a van. Did you know that?
Do you?
Yes.
You van life?
I mean, half. I'm like 50% in. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I got to go to the BET Awards weekend and do the interviews and stuff. But yeah, I've just spent a week in Yosemite in my van. I love it.
Is it a van or a Sprinter?
It's not a Sprinter. It's a ProMaster. It's a cheaper Sprinter. Sprinter's out of my budget.
So your van is because I'm into this because I've watched so many YouTube. So you have like solar panels?
I thought you brought that up because you knew that.
I had no idea.
So this is what happened. I mean, I've always been into traveling, but like 2020, I had all these trips, but like I had planned the whole year out.
Right.
And so I went to Cape Town, January 2020. Go to Cape Town. I forget where I went in February. Somewhere else. March, I go to Argentina, Chile. I was in Chile when COVID happened. I mean, it kind of, when I flew out of the U.S., it was like you kind of heard about something happening in China.
Right.
But so I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like you could only get service like once a day. So like every day I'm getting like a few texts, and my friends are like, "Things are getting canceled. You probably should come home."
Yeah, like I don't know if you're gonna get back in.
That's really what happened. So I was on one of the last flights back to Atlanta before they shut everything down. I got back to the airport and the airport is completely empty, and I'm like, what is going
like,
on?
This is different.
This is the craziest. Drive on the freeway, like
there's
no cars. I'm like, so abruptly, I'm like, my whole year is just I gotta cancel everything. Like what's gonna happen? So I'm just bored watching. Going down this rabbit hole for like 2 weeks of YouTube videos, and I'm like, you know what? Good. I could do that.
Yeah.
Bought a cargo van. I'm like, okay, now I'm committed. Now I got to build this thing. So I built a camper van during.
So in your van, do you have like the like little sink, and a little like yes. You could cook in there, and
I learned so much. I mean, I feel like I could really build a house now. Maybe I couldn't, but yeah, I have solar panels. I have a whole desk. I have satellite internet. I have.
Do you have the?
I have a shower.
Do you have this? The Starlink. Yeah. Does the Starlink work?
I'm not really an Elon fan. Yes, the Starlink works. It does not work if there's trees. You have to have a clear view of the horizon.
Wow.
And last year it didn't work past a certain. I went to the Arctic Ocean last year, and it didn't work past a certain.
How do you get to the Arctic Ocean?
I drove to the Arctic Ocean.
Where is that?
It's at the very top of the continent.
So you had to get.
I sent my brother a
Canada
location thing. Like, look at where I am.
So it's like the top of Canada.
Yes.
What the fuck?
It's called Tuktoyaktuk. There's only one place you could drive to the Arctic Ocean, and it's this little Indian. Well, I don't want to say Indian. They call it First Nation in Canada. It's Native American Canadians, and it's called a hamlet. They don't call it a city, but it was a very interesting place. I met some like some little girls came out, were talking to me. And,
do you have a pet?
No.
Okay, I just got because you'll see these guys online. They always got a little dog with them. I'm
I've
like,
considered it. Dogs are not really welcome at all the parks because they tend to tear up the ecosystem. Is what they're very destructive to the ecosystem, is what I've been told. So I don't really want.
So you're a nomad.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yes. So it took me a year and a half to build the van. So and by this time, like, the world sort of started to return to normal,
Right.
And now I have like
now I'm
a
in this
full-time
van
job. I have to finish. It was a lot of work.
I can imagine.
You watch the YouTube videos and you're like, okay, cool, but
those
that was a
YouTube videos make
3-month
it seem
time
so
lapse.
easy.
They
Right.
absolutely do. Yeah.
You'd be like, damn, this guy did this in 4 hours or something like.
It's a lot of work, but I think probably the first one is the hardest because you're like there's a learning
Right.
curve with everything. But
So I
love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you love it. So you're pretty much for you on a normal basis when like you're in town for BT Awards, right? That just happened, right? For you though, like on a
Now I do not do the van in cities. I will say that I'm not in the van in LA. If you're in a van in LA, you are just homeless. If you're in a van in
San Francisco,
you're
homeless. Yeah.
If you're in
Portland.
a van now, if you're in like the desert in Utah, or if you're at the Arctic Ocean, then you're fucking cool because I spent the night at the edge of the Arctic Ocean watching the Northern Lights, cooked myself dinner, and took a shower in the van that I built. That's peak, like.
That's amazing. Well, I was going to ask you, like,
Everybody doesn't get that though.
so
Some
where's
people are like,
wait, where does the van stay?
Her name is Carmen Van Diego, by the
Okay.
way. She's a she.
Where does she stay?
She's a nomad, so she.
Like, because you're obviously home base for you is the South. Is it Atlanta?
Atlanta, yeah.
So is the van you got a spot? You got like a little.
No. That's a terrible drive I keep it out anywhere out west.
Okay.
I found an airport with
So do you
free
have
parking.
Do you have like an apartment?
But I have a house.
Okay, so you have a house.
I'm not totally down the rabbit hole.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. So you've seen some pretty.
But you know what? I don't know how much longer I'll keep it though, because it's tempting to just be like, yeah, let me just.
Well, because you could probably sell that thing for a serious amount of change. Because people would rather not do what
I
you
would
did.
never sell the van. Yeah.
Oh, well, because people really aren't.
No, I'm talking about the house. If I was gonna sell anything, I would sell the house.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Yeah, I'm intrigued by the van life.
No, it is. I mean, it is nice to have a place to go back to that's permanent for sure.
For sure, keep some things.
But I think I could do the van life full time.
Full time.
if I really was like dedicated to it. But
You guys have seen some crazy shit though. Just traveling the country.
let me think. Going to the Arctic Ocean was definitely crazy.
Has anyone tried to break in?
Come on now, don't bring that on.
I don't know. I don't know. You're at a truck stop. There's the weirdos
No, like I
out
said,
here.
I won't go to San Francisco. I won't go to LA.
Right.
I'll leave it somewhere else and fly to the city. I don't do the big cities.
That's pretty cool.
So so far I'm not gonna say I haven't had any crazy experiences, but yeah, that's the two questions men ask about the van. Where's your weapon? Have you had sex in the van? Those are the two questions.
Do you have a weapon in there?
I'm not gonna answer either.
You better
either
have. I
question.
mean, some mace or something.
I did get I saw a cool front plate that this guy had that said, "If the van is rocking, don't come knocking." So I got one just because I thought it was cool.
Shout out to the van life.
How long was that drive to the Arctic Ocean?
It's a long drive. It depends on where you're starting from, obviously. But the road itself, it's an 18-hour dirt washboard road. It's terrible drive.
That sounds cool.
That's once you're all the way in northern Yukon. So the crazy thing is, I almost got stuck there. I did get stuck there, but there's one road, only one way up and down. And so I was driving up, and it's beautiful. The scenery is amazing, but it's quiet, but it's not quiet to the point where you could just stop your car and get out of the car. And it's also, you can't leave the road because it's permafrost. So the road is specially designed. So if you pull this heavy van off the road, you're gonna just sink into the ground because it's permafrost. So you can't leave the road. You can't really get out of the car. So I'm this whole 18 hours, I'm I wish I have got my camera, my drone. I'm this is fucking beautiful. I can't even
Get out and stop. Yeah.
So I get up there. It was amazing when I 60 degrees. I swam in the Arctic Ocean. Like I said,
How cold was that?
it really wasn't as cold as
As you would think.
as I thought it would be.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I just swam in it just to be like, I swam
I
in
did
the
it.
Arctic Ocean.
I did. I came all this way. I might as well get in.
Spent the night, saw the northern lights. It's incredible up there because you're so far north. They're like above you.
Right.
So I just was like this all night, just watching the lights or whatever. So next day I start driving back down, and there's also like ferry crossings. There's something about they can't support the bridges because of the permafrost or whatever. So you have to take ferries at certain points. So I'm on the ferry, and the guy in the ferry is like, "Hey, did you hear the bridge is closed?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Yeah, the bridge is closed." So there's a bridge halfway. So it's like mile or hour 9 of this 18-hour journey, and I guess there was a construction happening. This guy had his boom up on the construction truck, and he hit the bridge. So the Canadian government or whatever puts out this alert that's like, and you don't have service up there because the Starlink didn't work up there at that point. I think it does now, but there was like one spot where I could get a signal, and so I, get to this one spot that's like a higher point or whatever, and check online, and it says bridge is closed for 30 days, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of can't really hang out I'm above the Arctic Circle. Like it's like September. So I'm like, it turns, really fast. It gets cold. And so I'm like freaking out. Like
I'd be definitely freaked out.
There was like 20, maybe like 20 of us in RVs and stuff that were above the Arctic Circle. So it was interesting. It was like a throwback to like the old days where you didn't have social media and internet and stuff like that. So if you see anyone driving down the road, you're like, "Hey, have you heard anything?"
Yeah.
Like, because there is a small town, so it's not like you're just totally out.
Right.
But they get their supplies from down there too. So they're like, "How are we gonna get gas? How are we gonna get food?"
That's crazy.
So it ended up being 3 days later they had to have like engineers come up from the big city and Whitehorse or whatever, and they analyzed like, is it safe? So we ended up getting to cross 3 days later. They had all these engineers out there, and they're like one at a time, and they did all these calculations on if the bridge was, sturdy or not. So for 3 days, it was Labor Day weekend, actually. So Labor Day weekend, and it finally dawned on me, I'm like, this is my fucking dream. Like, why am I mad about this? Like, I get this whole area to myself.
Right.
No cars. So I got the drone out, and I'm like driving everywhere.
That's fire.
I know it makes me sound like a nerd because most people will be like,
no, that's just
not
dope.
into this, but I thought it was fucking awesome.
That's
so I got
sweet.
to spend my Labor Day weekend driving around the Arctic with my cameras and my drone, took all these cool pictures, and then they were like, "Go ahead, you can go home."
I like that.
That was probably my best van life adventure yet.